Well, heading into the new year, it's easy for me to say states are facing a total budget shortfall of $72 billion, with nearly every state facing budget woes. Some on Capitol Hill say allowing states to go file bankruptcy might be the only way to avoid another massive federal bailout. So, the question, should the federal government step in, or should we let the states go bankrupt? Here to debate this is Democratic strategist and former DNC Deputy National Finance Director David Mercer and political humorist Ellen Karras. Merry Christmas to both of you. David,
Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
David, let me start with you. Let me have you answer from the Democratic side some of the Republican criticism of this, which is that, hey, some of these states, the ones that are in the biggest problem, facing the biggest problem, are some blue states, California, Illinois, and others, and a lot of its blame fits right in the hands of unions. What do you say to that?
Listen, we can't get into the blame game if we're going to look for solutions to managing and making for a better foundation for these states that are facing budget deficits. And I think that you'll see that we need a bipartisan approach to managing these deficits. We can't just have it as we did in 1975, where, as you'll recall, headlines from the New York Post from President Ford saying, "Drop dead to New York." We can't function that way. That becomes a drag on all the positive things we've been doing over the course of the last 2 years. I think you'll see in the State of the Union address from the President mapping out a course that, again, will be bipartisan and a sense of management and just not these indiscriminate cuts and letting states go bankrupt. And you can't lay blame on one or another.
Back, though. I mean,
we have to come together on this.
History repeats itself. You don't learn from history, Ellen. You tend to repeat it, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not a big proponent of letting the states go broke, but you know what? They deserve it. Yeah. I mean, New York State, where I live, the highest taxes. I mean, I buy a bottle of oil Olay, it's $10, but the tax is $12. I don't know who's doing the math, but it's absolutely ridiculous. I think it's a white-collar crime, the way that they have hoarded the money, they have wasted the money. And also, I really think these states need to take a page out of Governor Christie's book. No. Say no. Just like when I wanted to sleep over my friend's house when I was in high school. No. That's what my parents used to say.
In high school?
Pensions,
you must have been a troubled girl.
Well, I was Greek, so they were very strict with me.
Well, let's take a look at some of these math numbers. You were just bringing up math. David, let's take a look at some of the math here. These are states that are on the brink right now. Here's some of the budget blues that they're facing. Unfunded state and local pensions. Again, we come back to the union issue, though, but a lot of these things, a lot of these problems rest right in the hands of unions. Ellen's saying, you know what, maybe we should let them go bankrupt. But here the problem is, David, is that they're going to come knocking on the federal government's door, and we could face a bailout at the state level in the year 2012, 2014, if we let these states go bankrupt. Is that not correct?
Listen, let's not leave the audience with the implication that we're bailing out the unions. Again, let's not put the blame and shoulder of blame on the unions. This is a lot more. You have the private sector that has $1.2 trillion sitting on their books, hopefully with the recent tax cut package that both Obama administration and the Republicans stepped to the plate in providing. You'll see greater hiring for the banks, who also are experiencing, along with corporate America, the highest profits. You'll see greater lending that will stimulate the economy both in the states and nationally as a whole. And again, let's not lay that on the unions.
Okay,
You've had the private sector holding on to a lot of cash.
Ellen, jump in here. How do we fix this then? If we're not laying the blame on the unions, we can't turn our backs on the states. How do we fix it?
Well, first of all, the way when these pension liabilities were all set up in the 70s, in the 60s, we actually had manufacturing in this country. All those jobs have been shipped out. Service businesses have been shipped out. So if we don't get jobs back into these states, we're not going to be able to support these states, and they are going to go broke.
David, why, if we can't
and that's where the private sector has to step up. We've heard too many excuses that from the GOP that the private sector needs greater certainty with regard to taxes. Well, now they have that certainty. Let's see them spend it, and let's also see labor combined with the private sector and everybody coming together on the state and federal level to come up with solutions that will address the working American family in these states and not let the states go bankrupt.
We need to have incentives, more research and development incentives, and much more lower tax rates. Those weren't cuts. Everything just remained the same.
On the first one,
and perhaps we can also look at some of the states and take a lesson from the page of states like Montana, who aren't facing the same kinds of problems that these other states are. David and Ellen, Merry Christmas to you. Thank you so much for coming in this morning.
And the same to you.
Merry
All
Christmas.
the best.